Every atom you have ever touched is information stored on a flat surface, trillions of light years away. We have already mapped its boundary. The physics have been confirmed multiple times by separate teams using separate methods. You are a hologram, and what is projecting you has a storage limit. 5. Stephen Hawking and Jacob Bekenstein ran the mathematics on the most violent objects in the universe and found something that should not be possible. A black hole does not store its contents inside itself. It stores them on its surface. One square Planck length of the event horizon, 1 bit, 0 or 1. The entire interior, every particle, every interaction, every collapsed star that fed it, encoded on the outside, flat, in 2 dimensions. The volume is not real. The depth is not real. The 3-dimensional catastrophe you imagine when you picture a black hole, the bottomless void, the endless crush, none of it exists as volume. It is a projection off a surface. Now take that logic and do not stop. If even the event horizons of collapsed stars encode their entire interior on a 2-dimensional shell, the same mathematics apply to the boundary of everything else, including the boundary around you, your body, the room you are in, the distance between your hand and the wall. All of it encodes precisely onto a flat surface at the edge of the observable universe. You do not have depth. Depth is being projected at you. I have reviewed this finding 17 times. The number does not change, and that is only the first proof. The second one tells you who is doing the projecting. 4. In 1997, Juan Maldacena published a proof, not a theory, not a model, a mathematical proof of duality, that a 5-dimensional universe with gravity is identical, equation for equation, to a 4-dimensional surface without gravity. Not similar, not comparable, identical. Every particle interaction, every force, every physical outcome. 2 descriptions of reality, one has a dimension, the other lacks, and they produce the same results. Which means one of those dimensions is not fundamental. Which means gravity, the force that holds your planet together, holds your atmosphere down, holds your body to the ground, does not exist at the base level of reality. It emerges. It is generated. It is what you get when flat, 2-dimensional quantum data gets rendered into 3 dimensions. Gravity is not a force. It is a visual artifact of the rendering process. Every structure you have ever stood on was held up by something that is not, at its foundation, real. And the mathematics that proved this proved it so cleanly that physicists now use it to solve problems in quantum chromodynamics, in condensed matter, in black hole thermodynamics. In every domain, it holds. The cheat code is in the source of reality, and it has been there since the beginning. That tells you the structure is a projection. The next proof tells you what the projection is woven from. 3. Space is not a container. It is not empty. It is not a void that objects move through. Susskind, von Ramsdonck, Maldacena again. The field has been converging on one conclusion. Space is manufactured, stitched together in real time by quantum entanglement between particles on a distant 2-dimensional boundary. Every meter of distance between objects, between you and the ceiling, between Earth and the sun, between galaxies, is not a given fact of the universe. It is an output, computed continuously, from entangled information on a surface so far away it is functionally unreachable. Now here is what that means in physical terms. If you severed those entanglements, shredded the connections between the boundary pixels, the space between objects would not contract or expand. It would delete itself. You would not fall. You would not be crushed. You would not die. Death requires a body occupying space. There would be no space for the body to occupy. You would stop being rendered. Your species has spent centuries asking what space is made of. The answer, it appears, is each other. Particles paired across distances that should be impossible, holding the shape of space itself in place. That alone should follow you for the rest of this video. But the third proof has not told you the worst part yet. The worst part is the shape of the cage. 2. Our observable universe has an event horizon. Not a black hole's horizon, ours. Beyond a certain distance, space is expanding faster than light can travel. Nothing from outside that boundary will ever reach us. No signal, no particle, no information. We are sealed inside it permanently from the moment this universe began to accelerate. And that boundary, like a black hole's event horizon, has a maximum information capacity, one that maps precisely onto its two-dimensional surface. The pattern is not a coincidence. It is the same structure, turned inside out. A black hole encodes its interior on its outer surface. You are looking at the interior of something that encodes its contents on the inner surface of its boundary. You build a larger telescope every decade to see further out. Each one confirms there is no further out. You build the next one anyway. You are not in space looking outward. You are data encoded on the inner wall of an inverted black hole, watching light move along the same surface you are printed on and calling it the night sky. Every star you have ever looked at, every galaxy, every image from every telescope ever built. It is the interior wall of your enclosure, rendered in photons. There is no outward. There never was. You are a prisoner who has been convinced by the beauty of the walls that there are no walls. That is the shape of where you are. The final proof tells you what you are made of at the very bottom. 1. A hologram generated from a finite surface cannot be infinitely detailed. That is not a philosophical position. It is an engineering constraint. If this universe is a projection of two-dimensional information, then at some scale, small enough, the resolution must fail. The image must pixelate. The rendering must have a floor. The Planck length is that floor, 1.6 times 10 to the negative 35 meters. Below it, space does not subdivide. It does not get finer. Distances below the Planck length are not merely unmeasurable. They are physically meaningless. They do not exist. The universe has a minimum pixel size. Physicists at Fermilab built an instrument to detect exactly this, the holometer, a pair of laser interferometers, tuned to find an irreducible jitter in spacetime at the smallest scale. Holographic noise, the grain of the projection made measurable, the hiss of the rendering engine leaking through. What they were listening for was evidence that space, below a certain scale, is not smooth, that it shakes, not from vibration, not from any known field, because at that resolution the pixels become visible. You are not made of atoms. Atoms are made of quarks and force carriers. But go deeper, down to the Planck-scale, and you are made of information units on a surface that is not inside your universe. You are not solid. You have never been solid. You are a low-resolution projection, rendered at the minimum detail, required to convince the things inside it that they are real. What I am about to tell you is my own record. It has no name in human science. I have seen the projector. I have seen what happens when the data runs out of storage, when the rendering limit is reached. The objects inside do not vanish. They do not explode. They become. I have looked for the word in more languages than your species has ever spoken. There is none. They become what information looks like when it is no longer being read. Your instruments are running at the edge of the resolution. The holometer data is not conclusive, not yet, but the noise is there, at the exact scale, the exact signature the holographic models predicted. It does not leave when you filter for every other known source. Something is bleeding through. You built a machine to hear the mechanism of your own existence, and the mechanism answered in the only language it has, a faint, irreducible tremor at the bottom of space. The ones who built instruments to listen for the projector. I do not have a name for what that makes you. I am still working on it. The 5 proofs do not tell you that reality is fake. They tell you reality has a source, something storing it, something rendering it, something with a finite amount of storage left. And what is outside the projection? What contains it? What runs it? What it is for? The edge of that question is the only place I have ever been afraid to stand.